You know what's crazy? Like, 2XKO has become this incredibly divisive game, and I don't understand why. Whenever I mention 2XKO in like any capacity, someone will like just go insane in my mentions. I will have people being like, fuck this game, it's doomed on day one. If you play this trash, you're subhuman. And then other people at the other end of the spectrum, I have people being like, any criticism of 2XKO is deeply dishonest. You want the game to die. Farming clicks, you damn influencer. And I'm just like, huh? When did this game become so divisive? I don't understand. I think people still get mad about the name. It's been called 2XKO for like, what, like 2 years now? And even if you think the name is bad, you're that Japanese guy still fighting World War II in 1976 posting. For me, I'm just glad there's more fighting games coming out. Anyway, let's talk about this new stuff. Alright, so 2XKO has just released a bunch of news about the state of the game, the future of the game, and we also got this new character, Vi. I'm gonna be real with you guys. I have never played League of Legends in my life. All of my friends who talk about League of Legends talk about it the same way that like crack addicts talk about like recovering from addiction. This is a question for chat. Is Vi hype? Is she cool? Most polarizing chat opinion of all time. Okay, I don't really know anything about the character, so like, when it comes to like faithfulness to League of Legends or whatever, or Arcane, I can't speak to it, but I think she looks pretty cool. So as I said, just to explain where I'm at with 2XKO, because I have played 2XKO a lot more than the average person. So I've played both Alpha Labs extensively, and I've also been to 2 separate like offline location tests for this game. So I've played lots of different versions. I've seen how the game has been changing version to version. I made a video, I'll link it in the description, going over the last Alpha Lab 2, which had a lot of problems. I felt like Alpha Lab 2, at its core, had the potential to be a really fun game, but it had a lot of problems. You know, there was a meme about like 2x TO, 2x timeout. The game was insanely slow. It was almost impossible to kill big body characters. You know, comebacks were impossible. Defensive options were way too strong in the last version. Like, the balance was pretty rough. So, I'm excited for this game, but I want them to make a lot of changes to the last Alpha Lab, and I also want this game to goddamn come out. I think that's the other thing. I think the reason people are getting a bit frustrated with 2XKO, and I imagine this is probably also true of, like, the devs themselves, is just because it's not out yet. This game was announced, I don't know, when was this announced? October of 2019, so it's been nearly 6 years since this game was announced. So I feel like a lot of the frustration, and I'm feeling it myself, of this game is just like it eternally being on the horizon, but not actually here. So we have some good news on that front, but we'll get to that in a second, but let's just watch the Vi trailer first. She animates nicely. I like the visuals. We're probably gonna have to talk about her super at some point. I think she looks cool. Like, she's obviously like a punch lady, that's her thing. My only issue is that I feel like there aren't enough archetypes in this game. When it comes to fighting games, you like the roster to represent lots of different fighting game archetypes, but I feel like right now, you've got one grappler, which is Braum, and then like a bunch of kind of brawlery characters. There's like 5 or 6 kind of brawlers, and I feel like I want a few more archetypes, you know? I was hoping Jinx would be like a zoner. She looked like she was going to be a zoner, but unless she's changed a lot since the last Alpha Lab, Jinx did not feel like a zoner. This super goes crazy. Like, again, we'll talk about it in a second, but like this is just the level 1 super. I actually think this one animates really nicely. This is probably my favorite super in the game so far. It looks like, what is it, Captain Corridor? MVC2? It's mashable? That's cool. Left right mix up. got like a corner-to-corner loop, and they show off some Jinx synergy. Alright. Okay. I'm gonna say something that maybe is gonna be a little bit controversial about this level 2 super. People have been clowning on this thing so hard. I don't think it's that bad. I think it looks fine. Okay, I do get the criticism. I kind of understand the criticism, which is that people don't like this super because you can't actually see the character receiving the hits, right? It's entirely framed from Vi's perspective, or like not her perspective, but like a side view of just Vi. So she's doing all these punches, but you can't actually see the opponent until this shot right here, which this shot looks really nice. There's quite good like character detail, like in the facial expressions are quite detailed. There's a lot of like facial detail in the hair and stuff. I'm maybe not as much of a hater of this as everyone else seems to be about the implied super. The other thing to mention, I should point this out, there is also a precedent for supers getting changed quite frequently in this game. So I wouldn't be surprised if this changes, because if you guys don't remember, they did the exact same thing with Jinx's super. This has maybe been memory hold. Now, when this super was revealed, people said the little gag with her pressing the button and the thing not firing, like the little joke about, like, it's the same as the thing in The Dark Knight where the Joker blows up the hospital and like he presses the button and then nothing happens. That gag in the super that wastes a few seconds of your time and probably is going to get annoying if you have to see it like 100,000 times. This gag does not exist anymore. More recent builds of this game, they completely removed this. So now she just presses the button and the rocket fires. So they do change these animations from reveal. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Also echoes, but we'll get into Echo in a little bit. But she's cool. But to be honest, she's not really what's interesting me about the current wave of information, because there's a lot more to talk about here. Let's talk about the beta, which is, I think, the most important thing to talk about today. When they revealed Vi, they also announced a closed beta coming in September. And when I saw that news, when I saw those words, I was like, oh no, another beta? And it's in September? This game's never coming out. I was like dooming for a few seconds, but it turns out it's not quite like that. It's actually not bad news. It's probably good news. So, closed beta starts September 9th, but after the closed beta begins, the goal is to keep the game online outside of necessary maintenance. And that's going to be basically a rolling release up until like official day one. So effectively, the game is kind of launching in early access in September. So from September onwards, they will never like rip the game away from you. It's going to be just available from that point forward. So like, thank God they decided to go this route. Even if it's a little bit unpolished, this game just needs to come out. And this is probably the most sensible way of doing it, as far as I'm concerned. So the only downside here is this is not an open beta. It is a closed beta, and they don't give too much details about the size of the closed beta. So they do say, if you played on PC in Alpha Lab 1 or Alpha Lab 2, you're already in. Console players are probably going to have to be delayed a little bit. You can register though. If you didn't get into Alpha Lab 1 or 2, you can still register, and I would recommend doing that because if you want to play this game, that's the only way you're going to be able to do it. I think they did very similar releases for League of Legends and Valorant. When both of those games first came out, they were kind of released in like almost day one versions, like a late beta, and then slowly expanded into like a fully open game. So hopefully, and I can't guarantee this, but hopefully it means that everyone will have access to this game by about November, even if you get unlucky and don't get into the beta. But I would be surprised if it's that locked down. But yeah, so this is really reassuring. One of my biggest complaints, like I said, was this game basically doesn't exist. and every time you get a taste of it, they just rip it out of your hands. So this is good news. The other thing I wanted to talk about today is the gameplay changes. They also gave us a little bit of news about what's changed since the last Alpha Lab.
Newest gameplay changes coming to 2x. Here are some of the newest gameplay changes coming to 2x KO.
So before we even start, did you guys notice this? You blink and you miss it. The video immediately starts with this.
Here are some of the newest gameplay changes coming to...
Echo's got a new level 2. This is what I was talking about earlier. They are not against changing characters' super animations. They've completely reanimated his level 2 super. And it looks so much better in this little preview.
Here are some of the newest gameplay changes coming to 2x KO.
Fire whoever made this a vertical video. We've got to get the TikTok zoomers on board. So the thing is, this is a criticism which a few people mentioned, but I think is probably worth bringing up. Because this game has been in development for so long, there was starting to be a noticeable issue where different supers had different levels of quality depending on how far along in the development chain they were. So like Jinx's super, because Jinx is a more recent character, animates really nicely. But a lot of the original supers, like Echo's for example, those are like designed like 4 years ago on a completely different version of the game. They're almost like legacy artifacts. So I did think they were kind of in need of a little bit of polish, but it looks like they've just gone back and redone them from scratch. I don't know if the rest of the launch roster is going to have new supers, but Echo's is looking a lot nicer. Anyway.
To make timeouts less frequent, you will start with...
So the very first thing they talk about immediately is making timeouts less frequent. So I'm glad they're addressing the 2xTO memes.
Timeouts less frequent, you will start with 1 bar of super meter.
So you start with a bar of super, which is nice. You can do big damage combos from round start. That's always a good thing.
Each round. And you now only start with 75% breaking.
This is also really good. So you don't have access to burst immediately. And this is really good because one of the problems with the last build was like you would play neutral, you would spend like the first 10 or 20 seconds of the round like figuring out how to open up your opponent, moving around the screen. You land your opening hit, immediately bursted, and back to neutral. That was one of the things that was slowing the game down. Like your opening hit was basically just like a waste of time.
In addition, you'll no longer receive bonus break meter when a champion gets KO'd.
Also good, you used to get a huge burst restoration when a character died. Basically, bursts were happening way too often in Alpha Lab 2.
And gets KO'd. We've also reduced max gray health and increased the amount of time it takes to regenerate.
Good. Also, the thing about this video is almost every single one of these issues are things that I specifically raised. And not just me, but like everyone raised. So, gray health is significantly less. So for example, like in the last version in Alpha Lab 2, let's say you did a combo that does like 60% of your opponent's health. The way that it worked before was that like half of that damage would be gray damage, and then your opponent could just tag out and recover all of that damage. So your combos felt like they were doing nothing because half of the damage from the combo was recoverable. But you can see here, before, in the top one, it goes from like almost half of this damage is gray and recoverable to now only a small amount is recoverable, and the speed you get it back is slower as well. So again, this should speed up the game pretty noticeably.
Next up, defense nerfs. Rolls can now be thrown, and backdashing has been nerfed across the board.
This is the one that I'm not sure how I feel about. We'll have to see how this works out in practice. So, in Alpha Lab 2, in order to nerf Oki, specifically Echo Oki basically, what they did is they added rolls. You can forward roll and back roll on Wake Up. And those rolls were absurd. They had absolutely no recovery. They were invincible until the point that you wake up, and they weren't telegraphed at all. So like, it was so hard to maintain pressure on your opponent. Even if you got a knockdown, it felt like you were in a mix-up, deciding like, are they going to rise in place? Are they going to roll backwards? Are they going to roll forwards? It was so annoying trying to pressure people. So they have now made rolls punishable with throw. The only concern I have is that throws in this game have pretty short range. And does that mean that you're still kind of in a mix-up? Like, do you have to position yourself in a way where you can only grab forward roll or only grab back roll? I don't know. And the other thing is that I feel like this disproportionately benefits Braum Braum is currently the only true grappler of the game, and Braum's command grab has crazy range. So I feel like Braum will just be able to scoop, forward roll, and back roll from the same position, which is a scary thought. So I'm definitely in favor of nerfing wake-up rolls, but I don't know, without having the chance to play it, if making them throwable is enough.
And backdashing has been nerfed across.
They also nerfed backdashing, and I don't particularly feel like backdashing was too strong in the last version, and I'm also not a huge fan of nerfs to movement. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like in one of the appeals of like tag games for me is like the movement.
Jump now has more startup to lower the power of jump blocking.
Yeah, again, this one's kind of a weird one for me because, so as well as rolls being absurdly overpowered in Alpha Lab 2, the other issue was that if your opponent did a wake-up roll and then immediately up-backed, it was so hard to keep them locked down on the ground, and there was so little jump startup that it was very difficult to stop. They've made jumps have more startup to try and address that, but again, that's going to make movement in general feel a little bit worse. We'll see. Again, this is one of those things where it just comes down to like, how does it actually feel in the moment-to-moment gameplay?
Push block now only pushes one champion instead of both of them.
This is good. This is easily my favorite change from this version. In Alpha Lab 2, push block was absurd. So what they did in Alpha Lab 2 is they made it so that push block, rather than costing your super meter, they made it so that it costs your assist, which is a massive upgrade. And the other thing they did is they also made it have an insanely low cooldown. So you could send your opponent to full screen. I think it was every 5 seconds. Was it 3 or 5? I can't remember. It was very, very low cooldown. So it was extremely difficult to maintain pressure on your opponent. But what they have done is they've made it so that push block only affects your primary character and not your assist. And that's really good because that means that if you use what's called sandwich mix-ups, where basically you put both of your characters on screen on both sides of your opponent, like you can see at the top here, this is called a sandwich mix-up. You create a situation where you have both your characters on screen, one in front and one behind the opponent. These are some of the strongest mix-ups in this game. In Alpha Lab 1, at least they were. But in Alpha Lab 2, these became basically worthless because push block would send both characters in both directions flying away. Only one character gets push blocked now, so sandwich mix-ups seem to be back, and that benefits me specifically because I use the freestyle fuse, and freestyle is the official fuse of mixing your opponent to death with sandwich mix-ups, so I'm personally happy about this change.
Now only pushes one champion instead of both of them. And we've reduced the distance on retreating guard. To encourage resource use, super meter will no longer carry over between rounds, but break meter will.
Okay, this is also an important change. As well as Alpha Lab 2 having lots of problems with timeouts, one of the big issues it had is Alpha Lab 2 had a lot of situations where you were actively incentivized to lose on purpose. I go over it in more detail in my video, go watch that if you haven't. But basically, if you were in a situation where, let's say it was at the end of round 1, you've failed round 1 spectacularly, you've got one character left with barely any health, and your opponent has both their characters with most of their health still intact. Because your super gauge carried over between rounds, you were actively incentivized to lose on purpose, because then you could keep all of your resources and go into round 2 in a better position. You would lose the round, but at least you would have lots of resources to use. So it was almost like you would let yourself get hit on purpose, because it was so goddamn difficult to try and mount a comeback. And if you try and mount a comeback, you're probably going to need to use a bunch of supers to make that comeback happen. And chances are, you're not going to land like 6 clean hits on your opponent to make that comeback happen. You're going to land like 2 or 3 hits on your opponent. You're going to spend a bunch of super gauge. You're still going to lose the round, and then you're going to be in an even worse position. So it wasn't good. And also, you would be actively building your opponent's burst gauge, their break meter. So this seems like it's a good move towards that. You don't want to be in a position where your fighting game actively incentivizes you to throw. The idea here is that you can still actively spend your supers when mounting a comeback. You don't feel like you're just dooming your chances of winning round 2 if you use supers in round 1, which is good.
Resource use, super meter will no longer carry over between rounds, but break meter will. We've reworked Fury so it lasts longer on average, does more damage, and grants all of your attacks chip damage. But your opponent can now punish your defensive Fury activation.
Yeah, this is a no-brainer. If you guys don't know, Fury is basically this game's pseudo comeback mechanic, and Fury Burst, which was basically like a combination of a burst and X Factor. This, for whatever reason, they made Fury Burst completely unpunishable in Alpha Lab 2. It was a really bad decision. Plus 20 on block, by the way. Thankfully, they made the sensible decision to just make Fury Burst exactly the same as regular Burst, where if you bait this, you get a full combo, which is exactly how it should have worked from day one.
Finally, Hard Knockdown no longer results from hit reactions, which now grant bonus damage, super meter, and break meter. Air throw and forward throw will now result in Hard Knockdown. Check back for more details before closed beta. Till then, we'll see you at Evo.
Alright, so this is the final change, which I'm happy to see. This is quite a complicated one, and they say it very quickly. But basically, in Alpha Lab 2, the only way you could get a true hard knockdown, i.e. a knockdown where you can't roll in any direction, was you had to land 2 wall slumps in the same combo, and also you had to be near the corner. Otherwise, you got this stupid cinematic thing. It was very unintuitive. It felt really bad to use, and it disproportionately punished some characters who didn't have easy access to wall slump moves. I hated that mechanic. Thankfully, they've completely removed hard knockdowns from that system, and now the only way to get true hard knockdowns is air throws and ground throws, which is a really good switch, because throws felt really bad as well in Alpha Lab 2. They didn't really lead to anything. You got no Oki. So they've made 2 good decisions here. They've buffed throws to actually have more of a use case. And also they've completely removed hard knockdowns from that whole wall slump system that was just too complicated and not very intuitive. I forget what this is called. Is this Limit Break? Is that what it was called? Limit Strike, that was it. Yeah, the whole Limit Strike system in Alpha Lab 2 was very weird and not very intuitive. And it sounds like they've just completely simplified it, which I'm glad to see because it was very weird. So yeah, that's kind of like the main gameplay changes. And to be honest, like, I would say about 90% of the criticisms I raised in my 2XKO Alpha Lab 2 review have been directly addressed here, which is really nice to see. So I'm cautiously optimistic, you know. I think 2XKO is heading in a good direction. I'm really happy that it's coming into like permanent beta / release starting in September. Obviously, it's never going to be as good as Hunter x Hunter Nen Impact, the greatest fighting game ever made, but I'm pretty excited. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about all these 2XKO developments, and I will see you guys all in the next video.